Welcome back to another episode of Have Game Will Travel. I'm your host, Bennett Newsome, also known as Dammit Bennett out in the gaming community, but as the Director of Esports Growth and Development here at Full Sail University, I'm super passionate about exploring the diverse world of esports and gaming beyond just skill level. So whether you're a first-time listener or a returning fan, we're thrilled to have you join us for this virtual journey through the experiences of industry professionals. Get ready to engage with our guests and learn from their perspectives, and remember to submit your questions in the chat and we'll get them featured on the show. But sit back, enjoy the ride as we kick off another episode of Have Game Will Travel with our good friend Shiplee from Maryville University. Shiplee, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It is exciting to have you here, and welcome. Go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself to the audience so they know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Ousley, aka Shiplee. I'm the director of media at Maryville University. I've been there since fall of 2019. And yeah, I handle everything from content, marketing, broadcast, kind of anything media marketing related through Maryville. It kind of all flows through me. So
That's very
yeah.
cool, and this has been a long journey for you. You've been involved in a lot of different things. You kind of started off with digital content creation, and what led you into the world of esports?
Yeah, so I was attending Missouri State University in Springfield, and I was getting my degree in film. And it wasn't really until 2015 I was kind of learning about esports. I was watching a lot of like Cloud9 CS:GO
Okay.
documentaries and stuff back in the day, and that's kind of I was a big CS:GO player, and that was kind of what I mainly played. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool that like esports is a thing, and it's cool that like there's this sort of side of it that they're showing the behind the scenes and things like that. So I
Yeah.
was like, this is kind of cool, but I didn't really think too much of it outside of just like, oh, this is a cool thing. Graduated in 2015, did what I think pretty much every film major does once they graduate from college, which is go the freelance route. So I was doing weddings and corporate videos and taking senior photos and all that sort of stuff. I was the guy in the family with the camera, so I
Yeah.
just had a lot of those little odd gigs and stuff here and there. And my buddy Jordan Payton, aka Legion, who's a big
Yep.
YouTuber, he was invited to a Halo event out here, actually in St. Louis, in the Illinois area. He's like, "Hey, I'm coming out to Illinois, and I'm going to do I'm going to be the floor host for this Halo event that UGC is putting on." He's like, "Do you want to go out and just shoot for your portfolio? You can sleep on the floor of the hotel room, like, and you can just come out and we can do that." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, that sounds really cool." So I did that. Kind of built a little bit of a portfolio just based off of some videos and photos that I shot off of that. And then the TOs over at UGC invited me out to a Gears of War Atlantic City event that they were hosting. And this was a paid gig, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is awesome, like second gig, paid, awesome. And it was really just like come out, shoot for our socials. And that's where I met John DeHart, who at the time was the director of media, creative director of eUnited. And we had kind of talked a little bit at the event, but not a whole lot. I was still sort of learning about esports. I mean,
Right.
Gears of War being my second event was kind of a big culture shock a bit. Like, it's just a crazy event. So that was really fun. And then John DM'd me afterwards. He's like, "Hey man, like, I'm about to have a kid. We want to really start like going all in on content at United. Would you be interested in like coming aboard?" And it was like, absolutely, like,
Yeah.
heck yeah, like I'm super down for that. And so pretty quickly, like, I just got started, joined the United team, and was starting to get sent to all these different events. I think my first event was um there was a Call of Duty event in Texas, and then, or no, yeah, I think it was in Texas, and then immediately after there was a Gears of War event. So it was like back to back weekends I was shooting. And then from there I did Smite World Championships, and the United won the Smite World Championship that year. Like, I was really just like thrown into it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, from there I just had really great 2 years with United, where I was traveling the country, traveling the world, just going to all these different esports events all over, really like getting the hang of sort of this documentary style
Hmm.
filmmaking, which is kind of what I was doing with them. event docs and things of that nature.
Right.
And Dan was also the general manager at eUnited. He was like, "Hey, like I like what you're doing for eUnited. Like maybe you can come and do this at Maryville. Like
Yeah.
you've got a good program." And I didn't really know much about collegiate. I didn't really know much about Dan or Maryville at all. I just knew that they were like competitively really good.
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like let's do that." And it was just like kind of in a 2 to 3 year span. I went from graduating college to like working full time at Maryville, and it was kind of just like a really quick trajectory. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. Like the thing that I like about this is obviously, you took a chance on an invite from a friend, Legion, who is obviously a huge creator these days. But like that's such a really cool kind of part of this story is that, like a lot of people that are on the show, they took a chance, right? They didn't know what was going to happen. Hey, I'll come sleep on the floor and I'll shoot some stuff,
Right.
and then it started to just kind of steamroll into this career that led from one thing to the next. What was that
Yeah.
kind of like in the time, like where all of these opportunities in this new emerging space was coming towards you?
I mean, I got over my fear of flying really fast, like really quickly. I was traveling two, maybe
Yep.
3 weeks out of the month, like pretty regularly. Like that was back when Call of Duty was having all of their events that were going on, and then we also had teams and other titles. So I mean, it was a lot. It was just a very quick sort of like, okay, this is like what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And like I think it's like, oftentimes people are like, wow, like you grinded really hard to get to the position you're in. And I don't want to discredit myself for the work that I've done, but like
Right.
I think everyone knows also that like esports is very like kind of luck of the draw. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you work years and years before you get an opportunity like I had. And I just happened to get really lucky, connected with John and Matt Potoff and
Yeah.
and them over there at United, and were able to kind of get the ball rolling really quickly. So I'm super grateful for John. He's been a big mentor for me. Even now that we don't even work together, like, I still hit him up, and yeah, it was just a really quick trajectory. I think, I just took it as I could,
Yeah.
as often, and it's yeah, I mean that's where how I got to where I am now. So
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously, like E United is a big part of this for Dan, for Burns, for so many people in this kind of uh, industry, but it's like it's still like family oriented. Like it's kind of got that vibe to close friends and opportunities that were there. Having that be really your first big break, what sort of things did looking back now at where you are really set the stage at eUnited with? Like are there things that you are doing now that you're like recalling from back in those days, or have you just really completely evolved from that?
no, I mean, I think like when Dan and I had the conversation in like early 2019 about coming to Maryville, the whole purpose of me doing that was really to come and tell the story of Maryville,
Yeah.
because I'd been doing sort of documentary style filmmaking at United. That was sort of the original goal, was to just bring me on as like a videographer,
Hmm.
and just tell the story of this collegiate esports program, and Chesterfield, Missouri, which people, they think Maryville, they don't even know where Maryville is half the time. And you say St. Louis, they're like, oh, I had no idea that it was even out there. So like I think, yeah, I think looking back at my time, I think I really quickly sort of developed my skills as just a videographer. I
Hmm.
was filming a ton, and I'd never really done that style of filmmaking in the past, prior to starting at United, but it was something that I quickly like really fell in love with. And even to this day, like I really love just like documentaries. I watch a lot of pro esports docs, a lot of
Yeah.
traditional sports documentaries and stuff as well. So, but yeah, I think now, looking at where I'm at now, I think out of necessity, it's just sort of evolved from, doing a lot of video work to everything media marketing related, because, like
Yeah.
Maryville is a very successful program. We have a lot of eyeballs on us,
Oh yeah.
and a big reason why we get the support that we get from our universities, because we have a lot of eyeballs on us, and sort of the traction that we have in the community. So, I had to learn how to run social media. I had to, boot up OBS for the first time and figure out how to run a League of Legends live stream. Things like that. And I think like, even up until just like a couple years ago, the first few years, it was just me really handling kind of all of those different aspects of things. Now I have a great team of student work study students that I work with for the broadcast side and media side and things like that. So it kind of opens me up to really kind of focus on the bigger picture stuff, like facility conversations
Yeah.
and kind of the bigger kind of overall marketing plan of what we're trying to do at Maryville. So I think it's a lot of trial by fire with my job. It's a lot of just running things how I think I would do it,
Yeah.
and you just seeing what works, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I have to be able to really kind of experience a bunch of different aspects of sort of creativity and marketing and things like that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think yourself as well as many others. There's a lot of hats that are worn in this space, and kind of having to learn some things on the fly and sometimes is really important. But you're transitioning from like the videographer side of things with eUnited to now, the esports creative director. And I know that wasn't the immediate title when you first started, but
Right.
like in that transition over the years, like are there any moments in that you see like were really pinnacle things that you did to elevate what the type of content that you were creating, and maybe that is something that elevated you to that next level of your journey?
Um, I think it just came down to I think like when I first started at Maryville, I think it was really about the documentaries. We
Yeah.
created a documentary series called Legacy, Behind the M. We created these different little mini docs and stuff. And while I really enjoyed, early on, like I was holding the camera, half of my day just capturing anything that was happening around the facility
Right.
to then like try to turn into a story down the road. And we were releasing episodes every month or so. And I kind of found that like through that, like as awesome as it was to be a part of that process and to be able to do that, like the audience of collegiate is just so small still that
Hmm.
like I think that I learned that like I was doing a lot for like little payoff, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm never one to really care about viewership. And if we put a ton of effort into a good documentary and it gets 100 views, like I'm happy and proud of the work that we did, and the viewership doesn't really make a huge difference to me. But I slowly started to just like prioritize my time a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Like, do I need to be capturing all of these little moments? So I started focusing. We started got away from the more regular documentary stuff, got more towards just like focusing on the events, things that would
Hmm.
probably make more make more sense for people to really tune in and watch if we want a big event, stuff like that. So I think it was just really kind of learning about how to prioritize my time a little bit differently, kind of focusing on instead of going all in on like one thing, kind of learning how to sort of spread myself a little bit and cover kind of all the different other little aspects of marketing and media that was required.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's taxing sometimes to think about like the views and the metrics of the thing that you're creating, especially when you're super passionate about it and you're making like cool stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like okay, well, this isn't really being that impactful, but you kind of evolve that to something else, and I get that totally. We've been on that boat before where we had real cool ideas and we're like, oh, this is gonna be awesome, and it's like, it's not as impactful as it was. Let's move on to something else, and
Right.
then you try to do something cooler. So I totally understand that. As the creative director, what does a day in your life look like now? I mean, you said earlier you were holding the camera all day for a long time. Are you more kind of in charge of other people holding the camera? Like, what does that look like to you?
I still hold the camera. I've had students come in that like Kench, for example. Like, love Kench. He's my right hand man when it comes to photography and graphic design and motion just kind of all use a Swiss Army knife. So
Yeah.
typical day in my life. Been really into the gym lately, so usually I start my morning with that. I'll get home, shower, and then pretty much just head up to the facility. And then I'm usually just kind of checking in on sort of what's needs my immediate attention, which is typically like, okay, if we're streaming tonight, like let's make sure we have the casters ready to go. Let's make sure that like everything's set up, ready to go. checking in with, staff members, seeing if they need anything from me on different, if we're signing up for a tournament, or if like we need to get headshots taken or little things like that.
Yeah.
And then really it's a lot of like, I think my role really and I enjoy this part of it, is kind of transition to more of like the partnership sides of things. So really like figuring out, okay, how do we start maintaining or establishing more partnerships that can help the program? So having conversations around that. Right now, I'm involved in like a new facility project that I've sort of been leading a little bit, that we're working on to put on the Maryville campus as well. So that's been taking up a lot of my day. And then yeah, outside of work, I go home. I usually game for a little bit. Not as much as I used to. It's funny that I think most people that get into esports think it's like, all sunshines and rainbows,
Yeah.
when you're like, I can game whenever I want. And but like, it's like, when you're around it all day, it's like you don't really like have that super strong to like just continue to do that after your work day. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
after work, it's a lot of, reading. I've been really getting into reading a lot lately. Watching, just movies and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say, my work day is typically just checking in with the students that might need my help, or feedback on a project or something like that. And then really just like, establishing those partnerships, having the conversations about the facility, and it was funny. One of our IT guys is like, you're kind of the guy in that kind of does everything that like nobody else really wants to do. So it's like, we're out of water for the water cooler. So I'm calling the company and being like, hey, like our delivery's late. Like, can we get that figured out? Or like, Shiplee, it's too cold in here. Like, can we turn it down? And I got to contact facilities and be like, hey. So little things like that also take up my day a little bit. But yeah.
That was the thing that said no one wants to do that. So those are already plenty of those things that you can find and take care of, which is good. Um,
Yeah.
the topic of partnership comes up a lot when we talk to folks on the show. What have been some of your favorite parts about leaning into that role, but also maybe some of the challenges that maybe most people don't think about when they're like, oh yeah, it's a partnership and we're a winning team, like that's an easy connect. Or like, how does that work for Maryville?
Yeah, I think the fun part of it is definitely just like being able to sort of combine like, support from a partner alongside the media side and the deliverables that we can offer them. How are they getting them, bang for their buck? And a lot of that is, it's natural for me to sort of handle those conversations because I'm the one that knows like, what we can do in terms of photography and social media and video content and things like that. So I think the challenging part, and I'm sure a lot of people know this in just this day and age of partnerships, is just ROI. Like a lot of companies really don't want to spend money unless they know that they're at least getting something in return.
Right.
And what sometimes that's access to campus and the student population. Sometimes that's just like, selling more product, pushing more product through a creator code and things like that. I think that's the challenging part. And it's always, as big and as grand as like Maryville is in the grand scheme of things in terms of social media following and just like our engagement and our metrics on socials, like even our ROI is just not great. Like, we just, it's hard to convince gamers to make purchases or to, invest in a product that you're trying to push to them when, they probably already have their favorite
Yeah.
energy drink or
Hmm.
peripheral or whatever that might
Yeah.
be. So I think one of my favorite partnerships that we've had for the last couple of years is our partnership with McDonald's. The fact that we have like our own Maryville Esports meal deal in the McDonald's app, and all the St. Louis area
Yeah.
locations. So it's like, I think close to 200 stores now, is like really awesome. I remember when we ran it the first time and they outlined the metrics for it when we ran it for the first time, and they were like, yeah, like, they're showing us the metrics and they're like, here's what you guys sold, here's what the St. Louis Cardinals sold, and we were like right on par with the St. Louis Cardinals. And I
That's
was like,
awesome.
great, like that's awesome, like that
Yeah.
was something that felt really satisfying. And then also alongside of that, being able to do our charity streams with them through Ronald McDonald House Charities has always been a really fun time, to help out with that. So that's a really great partnership that we have, and I enjoy, kind of digging into that one a little bit. So yeah, I think, with partnerships there's always going to be challenges, and I think it's like, how do you convince a big brand to come in and say, okay, well, you're not professional esports, and you're not really semi-pro esports, even though Maryville kind of is. It's like
Yeah.
you're collegiate esports. You're a niche of a niche, of a niche. Like it's just like, we're very far down the chain in terms of eyeballs and sort of exposure. So really trying to figure out how we can sort of lean into our followers, into our student body, and things like that to really provide value, I think is the challenging
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like your guys' program has been huge. I mean, you guys have put Maryville on the map in a lot of ways. You won Program of the Year and Team of the Year at the Scholastic Esports Awards. For someone that's really, heading up a lot of the content side of things, how do those like accolades like hit you? Like, what is that when those awards were presented and won? How did that feel for you?
It feels great. I think, it's always great, and I don't want to discredit the fact that we're winning program of the year, team of the year. I think that's all great. It does get disappointing when we are up for like media team of the year or
Yeah.
something like that, and that gets past us. I think we are doing really cool things in the media space and on socials and things like that. To see that kind of slip by us definitely gets frustrating at times, because I think while I kind of oversee a lot of people, I do think it sort of discredits the work that we're doing at the scale that we're doing it at. Like I mentioned Kinch earlier, like some of the videos that he's putting out like are even above like what you would see a professional team put the
Right.
effort into. So it's like so little things like that, I think. But overall, it's really cool to know that, like, I think part of the reason why we're able to make those achievements is because of how active we are on socials and how much we really try to shine a light on the cool things that we're doing. So when it translates to winning awards, like, it always feels really great to win those and to get those. We've won plenty of championships and stuff
Yeah.
in the past, but to be able to sort of sum it all up into one award for either team of the year, or program of the year, or something like that is always, really
Yeah.
satisfying for us as a program.
Absolutely. You guys have like what, 11 national championships?
Something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
11, 12, and then like 30 something major
Yep.
championships, couple of international appearances. So yeah, the accolades are there.
Yeah. 12,
And
12 players sent to the professional league.
yeah,
That's a
yep,
huge win in itself right there. I mean,
yeah.
for your players to go pro, I mean, that's the dream,
That
right?
and
Like,
that's something that we really pride ourselves on too, is just the talent development that we have at Maryville. And oftentimes you have somebody come in like APA, for example, who's playing for Team Liquid now. It's like, like he came in, he's always already a really skilled player, but the fact that he did spend a little bit of time with us and then, make the jump from us to Team Liquid was, it's a huge accomplishment. The fact that we had someone like Niles and Iconic, who were some of the first collegiate players to get picked up to go to Golden
yeah,
Guardians and to the LCS, was like a really cool opportunity, and sort of a testament to the talent that we're developing at Maryville. So
yeah,
so yeah, that is definitely one of my favorite accolades as well, is just to see. I always hate when players, like really good players, leave us, because it's like, okay, now we gotta fill that gap. But
yeah,
you grow close to the players too.
yeah.
I think everybody knows, like, at our level and in our roles, you don't, like, you kind of just get older, and everyone around you just kind of stays the same age, and you develop friendships with these people, and you spend a lot of time with them at events and at the facility. So when they move on, you're obviously very happy for them. You're like, man, that sucks, like, I'm not going to be able to hang out with this person anymore. So yeah.
I think we've got our first question from chat, and it comes from Sari. She says, "Maryville is groundbreaking in so many ways, but to me, their storytelling is what stands out the most. It feels very intentional. How much time do you spend planning out storytelling and content strategies versus creating the content?"
We spend a lot of time planning out the storytelling and the content strategy side of things. But that's not to say that we ever really stick to that strategy either. I think, like, as a media team, I meet with the students that are specifically involved in, like, the content creation side. We have a weekly meeting that we talk on, just like, here's where we're at, here's what we're thinking.
Hmm.
um we're always kind of talking about, how we can do better, or what we can do, or things that we can change. We made a big switch from doing a lot of, like, just long form documentaries and videos to more short form vertical content and
Yeah,
things of that nature. Like, we're having those conversations. The creating of the content itself, like, it really just depends on what we have in the pipeline. We're about to travel to two different back-to-back events. So we've had conversations the last couple of weeks about, okay, like, how are we capturing this? Like, what form are we capturing it in? Like, we can take the NACE Grand Finals, for example, that's happening at Full Sail. Like, we're sending 4 teams. Like, what does that even look
Yeah.
like in video form? Like,
Right.
should best case scenario happen, all the teams win? Like, we're talking like, even if you were to only spend 10 minutes per team, like, we're talking 40 minutes. So it's
Yep.
like, how do we showcase what we're doing at this event in the best possible way? So those are the kind of conversations we're happening to just make sure that we're not putting a ton of work on ourselves in the
Right.
midst of just all the different things that we're doing, but also like, how do we tell the story in the best possible way?
Yeah, absolutely. And something I think that I would love to learn more about, that you mentioned, was like having students that are working and running these different positions. Is this something that they're going to school for, or this is just happened to be a thing that they were into when it comes to content and social media?
So we do have students that will come to Maryville because of esports.
Awesome.
And oftentimes, we have students that will come and not, and just putting the content and the media thing aside, like, we'll have students that come and want to be involved in esports at Maryville because they know that, like, this is kind of where they think is their best chance of making it in the industry,
Right.
in some capacity. Oftentimes we don't have a way to get them involved right away. It's where, while we do have 4 teams, it's like trying to find positions for people where they're not just going to be wasting their time, or wasting
Right.
their time with us. But on the media side, like, I know Kinch, I remember when he toured Maryville, and it was trying to decide between us. He's from Columbia, which is, just about an hour and a half away from us. So, that was a decision maker for him. But, I told him, like, listen, like, I want content to get bigger and better. I think you can be a part of that. And I think that's a part of what influenced his decision making. And, I think he's in some sort of hybrid, self-created sort of major now at this point, because he's pretty advanced for a lot of the classes that Maryville can offer. But, I think we also have students that are involved in, like, sports business and marketing and advertising and stuff, that aren't necessarily, we don't have any sort of like specific photography or videography
Right.
degrees at Maryville, or even like, communications or journalism or things like that. That's, kind of a big thing that we're trying to solve for now, is like, getting casters and commentators for our stream. Like, how do we convince them to come to Maryville when we don't have, a direct path to, the
Right.
career that they want, through like a degree or something like that. So, we have students that, know the game, maybe casted for their high school or something like that, that'll get involved. So it's kind of a mixed bag of who we get. And we always try to find people that, are really just passionate and hard workers, and oftentimes we can just plug them into a position. And all of our student workers and, volunteers and team managers and everyone that kind of works behind the scenes outside of the team operations is, they're all really great people. And,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just kind of a mixed bag depending on, what role they're in and things like that.
Absolutely, and I feel like for the people that you do have under your belt, like there's a content kind of like development plan for them, just like there would be for the players, right? Like you guys are
Right.
obviously focused on player development, and it shows in what you've done. Are you trying to do that same thing with your current staff?
Yeah, I think, like, obviously, I one testament that I would have is, like, I had a student a couple years ago. His name was Damon. He just basically came to me. He started out by just sending me like a, hey, here's, I saw you guys were competing in this thing. Like, here's a video that I made of like highlights. Like, let me know what you think. And it like wasn't that great. Like, I'll be honest. And I've told him that. I was like, hey man,
Right.
like, this isn't something that we would post, but like, thank you for putting it together. Like, let's have a conversation. And he was just like, very passionate, very hard worker, just a sponge of absorbing information. And then he went on, I think right after college, went on and ended up getting a gig with Mr. Beast for a couple years, and worked with Mr. Beast and his team for a while. So, I think like, I think we do have a mix of students that want to come to Maryville with the idea of like, I want to do this in the future. Sometimes it is esports, sometimes it's maybe traditional sports, sometimes it's just like, I enjoy social media or I enjoy content creation. I have an editor now, his name's Anthony, has like 400K subs on YouTube, and just like does his own thing on YouTube as well. Like, he's already a very talented editor. I'm, and so like my job now is like, he's interested in camera operations and how to be a videographer. He's a great editor. creator, runs his channel very well, but doesn't have a lot of camera knowledge. So how do I, help him get like learn those skills and things like that, and then what he can do with it in the future. So it's just kind of a bit, it's kind of a mix, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We talked about earlier, like the McDonald's sponsorship. You also have another, I think, like a unique one, right? With a fantasy author. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Brandon
Brandon.
Sanderson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us about that, because that's a little bit on the other side of things from obviously McDonald's over here. What does this entail?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to take credit for at least establishing that, but yeah, I think last year, Riot was essentially trying to get sort of bigger creators sort of outside of the esports scene to partner with some teams. The Brandon Sanderson and the Dragon Steel team over there was interested in partnering with us. I think partly just because we were a university, and I think that that was a cool sort of unique opportunity for them. And it was, I mean, like, I personally, like, I never read any of the books, but like I knew of like Brandon Sanderson. I
Right.
knew of, the Mistborn series and the Stormlight archives. Like, I knew about him just because he is so popular. So yeah, I think, it was awesome, like, to be able to not only like talk to his team about like, hey, here's what we're doing for the jersey, here's what we're doing for our announcement video and all this other stuff. Like, it was really cool to be able to do that, but then to just have like sort of the fan recognition from
Yeah.
the Dragonsteel side of things and the Brandon Sanderson side of things, like, kind of cross merging sort of the fandom there. Having Brandon Sanderson fans who became League of Legends fans because
Yeah.
of what we were doing. Like, that was really cool. Caleb Kinch did a awesome video for the announcement for that. I went over really well. And then from there, it's like, yeah, we just kind of did our thing, ended up winning the whole the whole split. So like, that was really cool too, to be able to represent that for them as well. And the fact that, they're still signing on for another split with us to still represent us, is, or for us to represent them, is, I think speaks to what we were able to do for them and their brand. So yeah, very cool partnership. I think it's one of the more unique partnerships that you would see in esports. I think it's of sort of, I wish it was, I like that esports teams are slowly starting to acquire more sort of non-endemic
Yeah.
partnerships, whether it's a car brand or something like that. Like, I think that that's really cool. That's what I would hope Maryville and collegiate is able to get to a point of someday where that is more common.
Yeah.
um not a partnership that like everybody has. Like, I know McDonald's also partners, they're regionally based, so they partner with a lot of other schools. But to be able to secure something like a Brandon Sanderson partnership was just like a really cool thing for us. We were all really stoked internally as staff that we had this opportunity. So yeah, happy with how that went, for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing too. It's unique, and
Yeah.
I think, for you, being in this role and having these opportunities to get a little taste of a lot of the other areas outside of just content, right, is something that can add to your repertoire, like, as you continue to evolve. From like the content side, what would you say has been like the biggest challenge when it comes to you know creating high quality content for esports, but also like you know not wasting your time in that? Like, what sort of challenges do you usually run into when you're starting things?
Yeah, I think it's a fine line, honestly, between like, what's worth our time and what, maybe is something that we're really invested in, but like maybe not going to get the results that we want in terms of viewership or things like that. Like I said, viewership's something that I don't really pay a ton of attention to, just because I sort of recognize the market that we're in terms of collegiate content. Unless you get a big shout out from another big creator, or
Right.
it hits the algorithm somehow, like, I don't really put a ton of stock into that. I think the challenge is just like figuring out how to, one, how do you make your program look interesting?
Yeah.
Like, how do you and that's why we sort of got away from the day-to-day sort of storytelling to more just event-based storytelling. So that was something that we really kind of made the shift towards. But then also, like, how do you oftentimes our videos is centered around our players, right? So
Right.
like how do you get them invested into it as well? Because if you sit them down in front of the camera and it's something that they might not be interested in being involved in,
Right.
then that's just going to come across on camera, and then the video itself just suffers. And a lot of time and planning goes into this into a video. It's you learn every time you make a video, but we start to be like, for example, we like, I'll just say, like, we had a video idea that we were going to do, like kind of like a know your duo, know your teammate type style content piece that we were going to do with our League of Legends team. And we had kind of planned it all out around the League of Legends team, had all the questions and stuff ready to go. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, I love our League of Legends team, but like, this isn't the type of video that they're
Right.
going to like get into. I
Yeah.
was like, we should do this with our Overwatch team, because they just like, they riff off of each other a little bit better.
Right.
They're not afraid to like take jabs at each other. Like, it could be funnier and more engaging. So we kind of made that shift. And I think that, like, it's about recognizing, like, not necessarily, again, like saying like, okay, how popular is this video going to be, or how many views is it going to get? But like, I think if the video itself, like at the end of it, if you watch it, and you're like, this was a good quality video, it was funny to watch it, we had fun making it, the players had fun, then I think that's all you really need for a good content piece. And then if it gets the views, it gets it. If it doesn't, like, it's fine, because you learn during the process at some point or another. Every video that we've made this semester, we're like, we should have done that better, or we should have
Yeah.
done that differently. You learn a lot. I'm still learning every day, and I've been, doing filmmaking for 10 plus years now. I'm still learning about lighting and, audio and things like that, to just try to like better my skill set, so then I can teach that to students as well. So I think as long as you have sort of those few things and as part of the formula, and then you're learning along the way, then I think like that's really like what it's all about in terms of content creation. I think trial and error,
Yeah.
and just like having fun.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, like talking about how like some players they're just not into it, and that's pretty common, especially at a high level where players they want to play the video game, right? Like that's what they're
Yeah.
there for. They're not necessarily have any interest in content creation or being the face of whatever, So like how do you overcome it? Do you just turn the other way and try to do a different direction like you did with the Overwatch and
Yeah.
League team, or are there other ways that you can get some of these players to open up and see the bigger picture a little bit?
It really just depends on the player, the team. You can try to get them to open up and see it a different way, but that may work, that may not work. I think it's hard to answer, because I think that, like, we have players who like don't want to be in front of the camera at all. They're like, hey, like,
Right.
don't film me, as like, please do not film me at this event, or like, hey, like, can you avoid like taking my photo at this event? And that's just something, it's like, I get it, and like, we'll respect it as much as we can. Sometimes it's just like, hey, like, grow up, like, like, this is the
Yeah.
path that you've chosen. Like, if you go pro, it's going to get even worse. So like,
Exactly. Yeah.
like, get used to it now. I think that, like, uh, I think, like, I'll take Scary Jerry for example. I love Jerry. Like, he was a great player for us, playing for Disguise now in the LTA. My first interview with him compared to like the interviews that he's doing now, like, is a night and day difference. And I think, like, it's a testament. Like, I think it's cool to see sort of the progress that you get from players when you do put them in front of the camera more. They start to interact with the camera more, they get more comfortable on camera. I think that's really like the takeaway for me, is like, maybe they don't love it right away, but like, they get more comfortable,
Yeah.
it's easier to talk to them in front of the camera. I think that that's really like the benefit, or the takeaway is sort of that progress that you see over time. But yeah, I think, pivoting we do it all the time. Like, these two players would be better to do this video than these two players. Like, we really kind of figure out like what is going to be the best situation. And it
Yeah.
even comes down to like, if we're at NACE and we're winning a championship, it's like, you know what's the angle to film, who's the person to film, like, who's going to react better. It's like,
Yeah.
you kind of have to start making those mental notes of like, being in the right place in the right time and things like that too. It all kind of plays a factor, because every player is different. They
Yeah.
all approach it differently. Some love being on social and are very active on social. Some don't touch it at all, and they use it to just doom scroll, and they never post anything themselves. It's just, it's a mixed bag, and you just kind of take what you can get, work with what you can get, and hopefully, at least at the very end, like, you get a product that you're happy with, and at least the players are a little bit easier to approach the next time you want to do a video
Yeah,
with them as well, now
for
that they've
sure.
done it.
Do you feel like that there's a missed opportunity there for players that aren't leaning into the content side of things in this
100%.
journey?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to say that like it's not important and like only focus on the game because that's all that's going to matter. It's like we're in an age now of where the media side of esports is just as big as the competitive side of things,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have the fan investment if it wasn't for your personality as a player,
Right.
and things like that. So I think that like players do need to lean into that a little bit more. And like I said, we do have players that are really great with it, and some players that struggle with it, and that's completely understandable. I couldn't imagine being in front of the camera all the time either. Like that's why I'm the guy behind the camera most of the time. So, but yeah, I think as esports continues to progress, I mean, I always just compare it to traditional sports, right?
Hmm.
Like I think every single if you take an NFL or NBA or anything like that, like you can put them in front of the camera and they can form conscious thoughts and can get it out and do well. Like I think that that's a skill set
Yeah.
that like every player needs to have eventually. So if that's something that we can teach them at Maryville during their time with us, like great. Especially if they are someone that is on the path to pro. I love seeing players that I've had an interview in our facility, and then 2 years later they're doing an interview on the big stage, and it is a cool feeling to see how well they're doing in those situations, how they've built up their own
Yeah.
brand following and things like that.
Yeah, especially with a lot of these players being super young, and their career could go and not end quickly, but like okay, the pro days are over, now what,
Right.
and if you've built that content, maybe not 100% in all the whole time, but you've built a foundation for you to go fall back on that. And as you see, I mean, some of the biggest content creators are ex pros,
Yep.
out there right now, and they're able to continue to support themselves and do what they love, and make content and not have to be solely playing in a league. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you on that one for sure. Speaking of the collegiate space, though, I think you are a great testament to this, as well as some other folks that we've had on the show about the evolution of esports and how it's gone. How your time at Maryville has evolved. What is your kind of read on the collegiate esports, industry at this time, based on, your experience of watching it grow over the last couple of years?
Oh, I mean, it's awesome to see where even when I started back in 2019 to where it is now, the amount of teams that are involved. I think like I can't speak too much into just like the overall health of the ecosystem and the scholastic scene as a whole, but even just speaking from a media perspective, like there are so many teams that are getting more and more invested into media. It keeps me on my toes because when I started in 2019 there was like nothing, like there was
Yeah.
really nobody doing things back then. And I feel like I came in and really sort of like kind of got things started, but you have great people like Max Prosser over at Winthrop doing really
Yeah.
great stuff. Like they're, Ashley over at Converse, like they're all doing really great content. And so I think it's cool to see how one, like more people are getting more involved and more invested into the content creation side of things, knowing that like this is the best way to sort of shed their light on media. But yeah, I think like the rest of esports as a whole, the amount of events, the scale of the events are getting bigger, like the amount of teams that are participating, the level of skill of teams that are participating is getting higher and higher. The gap between the first and the 16th place team is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Like anybody can come in and win on any given day. Like all of our teams have been challenged over the last couple of years in some capacity or another against teams that you would never think
Yeah.
should take a game off of us or something like that. But I think you know it's getting developed more, it's getting recognized more within a university, getting more resources. Like I think it's going in a great trajectory.
Yeah.
I think it's really, I always try to think like, again, I draw a lot of inspiration from traditional sports, and I think it's like, wow, it's great where esports is now, it's great where collegiate esports is now, but like where was the NFL in their first 20 years of
Yeah.
existence, right?
Yep.
It's like I think there's what we're seeing now. I think Dan describes it, and I'm sure other people described it in this way, but like, you know, 50 years from now, Maryville is going to be a cliff note in a book about collegiate esports. Like, it's, as big and as popular as we want to be, like there's always going to be a bigger shark eventually.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sort of what kind of keeps us on our toes to keep evolving and to keep sort of innovating on what we're doing. But 50 years from now, it's going to look entirely different than what we're looking at now. And I think that that can be a really great thing, as long as the right people are involved, and it's for the health of the system. Because I think, it does come down to the students and the people that are involved behind the scenes, like, and what's best for them. So, really excited to see where esports goes. I hope I'm at Maryville for years to come to see how it continues to develop, and to sort of be, involved in the development of collegiate esports.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have another question from the chat. This one comes from Anissa. It says, what would you say is the greatest skill that someone looking to go into collegiate esports media should learn?
Um, Greatest skill. That's tough. I think, like, sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have the creative eye, and sometimes it's just really difficult. I've had students come to me who want to be involved in media or create content creation, who I think see the YouTube creators and the Instagram creators, and they think that it's like, I think they like the idea of it, but they don't really necessarily have the creative mind to dive in. And that's not to say you can't learn either. But I think the greatest skill is really just being willing to learn and to not get frustrated when you make a video or you create something that doesn't feel like it's the quality of what's around you as well. Because I think, there's always room to improve and grow. Willingness to learn, I think, is like the biggest thing, and willingness to just like allow yourself to really to really what am I trying to say here? I think it's really just about willingness to learn, willingness to really put in the work, and to continue to develop and to
Yeah.
continue to evolve over time, and things like that. Like I said, I have students that come to me that are really great editors, but have never held a camera in their life. And that's not to say that they can't become a videographer.
Right.
When I went into college, I thought I was going to be an audio engineer for the first 2 years of college until like I switched to video. And even then, like, I was not the greatest editor, like at the time. And
Right.
it's just something that you kind of learn over repetitions and stuff.
Yep.
I think putting the work behind the scenes is really important. It's hard to say like one greatest skill. I think it's really just like willingness to dive in, and to, do the practice and the reps on your own as well. If you're not getting work, or things like that, like really just, doing it. I think a good example is like, we have our 60-second speed run that we do as part of our series, and Garrett, is the guy in front of the camera who's really kind of breaking down, what happened and stuff. And we've done probably, I don't know, 15 episodes with him at this point. And the one that we just posted recently is probably like his best version of what he can present for that. And I'm sure that he has even more room to grow,
Right.
in terms of the way that he's presenting that content series. But like, he linked me. So he's like, hey, I drew inspiration from this guy, and like I've been practicing with this and
That's
that. And I
awesome.
think like that's like the biggest piece of it, is just like really putting in the work behind the scenes, getting better and better over time.
Yeah, like the not being afraid to fail and make a
Yeah,
mistake, right?
100%.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. And we do it all the time. Like, I've failed plenty of times. Like, there's been times where we've created a video. We just did a Valorant 1v1 video, and the entire one POV was, we had no game audio. And it was just like, how did we forget to record game audio for
yeah,
this? And so poor Anthony like had to go in and literally fake the game sounds, like, because we messed up. It's like, we failed. The video came out great, and it ended up working. But like, you have to be able to just like roll with the punches sometimes too.
yep,
If something sucks, it's like, cool, you learned, like, move on and apply it to the next one.
yep, yep, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with failing because you learn you every time. And I've always said that about streaming and content creation is like
Yeah,
just start
just
doing it
start.
now. And it's not going to probably be good on the first couple ones, but like
Yeah,
after 100 of them,
yeah,
you've got it, like, and then you keep learning. Obviously, you keep paying attention to what's good and what's bad, and you go farther. So,
yeah.
I really I appreciate you saying that. And I like that. that approach, because I think it is like, as long as you're willing to learn, there is a way
Yeah.
forward for
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
people, right?
100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When staying on this topic, when what advice would you give to like universities, leadership when it comes to building out their content team for specifically esports? You see a lot of times that a school is just getting started and they're trying to figure it out, and their social media team comes, oh yeah, well, we'll help you out here. Like, what would you recommend to schools that are getting into this, and they want to have a solid presence when it comes to esports as part of their media? What advice do you give there?
Yeah, I mean, number one is just start. I think oftentimes two people, um, they create their own roadblocks where it's like, I don't have this camera, I don't have this
Right.
equipment, or I don't have this staff or team to do these things. When in reality, like half of the teams that aren't posting stuff could very easily just pick up a cell phone and take some photos or record. I don't think that the quality necessarily matters as much as like what you're like the quantity in
Right.
certain aspects. If you're a collegiate team that wants to get into this or something like that, I think it's like you don't have to go in with like and even at our point, like with Maryville, like there's some schools that like have even more equipment than us,
Yeah.
and bigger teams of students than us. um i I think that as long as you just start, I think that that's like the biggest thing is like get started. And then from there, I think it's about just sort of developing your voice and really like recognizing where you're at in terms of the grand scheme of things, right? Like
Yeah.
if you are a low tier, you know, very like skill level team, like don't, obviously hype up your achievements and stuff, but don't go in there acting like you're gonna come in and beat Maryville, right?
Right.
Like I think recognizing where you're at and really just leaning into that and the cool things that you're doing. I think like this is such a cool thing. And I think people often, you hear it all the time, like, oh man, I wish this was a thing when I was in college. I say
Yeah.
it all the time. Like,
Oh yeah.
I wish Missouri State had an esports program that I could have been involved with when I was in college. But like, I think that, you have students now that are involved in it. And I think like they're living their best life and being able to do something like this. And I think like as long as you're just capturing that, it doesn't matter how you're capturing it, but just capture it in some way or another. You don't need the best graphics. Canva is free. Like
Yeah.
you can make stuff work however you want, as long as you just like um as long as you just start,
Yeah.
really. Like,
Yeah.
and from there from there you develop. Like I started out making graphics. I'm not a graphic designer by any means, but like when I first started in Maryville, like I had to crank out match day graphics. So I
Yeah.
was like, well, this is what other people are doing. Like I got to figure out how to do it. I'm not really into broadcasting or live streaming. Like I don't know. We switched over to vmix recently, and I have no idea what they're doing anymore behind the scenes of a broadcast. No clue. They could be like, yeah, this isn't working because of this, and I'm like, sound cool, sounds
Yeah.
good, like let's fix it. um so I think it's like I think it's just starting and just like evolving from there. It doesn't have to be top of the line, best quality, on par with other people when you first start. I think it's just you're doing something really cool. Just start capturing it in some way or another.
Absolutely. Um, Only got a time for a couple more questions because we're nearing the end here, but there's
Sure.
a couple that I want to like speed run for you.
Sure.
Um, uh, from your perspective, what do you think is the next big opportunity for content in the collegiate esports space? If you're willing to share, I don't want you to give away any secrets, but
No, no, no. I don't really have any secrets, to be honest. I mean, I think like I said, I think our big shift, it's weird. I think we recognize that like vertical content is big,
yeah,
but I think like people are already getting kind of bored of vertical content. And I think like as much as people are scrolling, I don't think they're really scrolling for entertainment. I think it's just addiction at this point. So I think it's like, we did a push for vertical content.
yeah,
We had some videos pop off, and we've done well in that aspect. And I think it's something that we're going to continue to do. I honestly think it's like, man, it's tough. I think like I love seeing esports docs. I mean,
yeah,
I'm always going to be a documentary guy. I think like seeing how teams are doing at events and things like that, I think are important. But again, like I think I've always recognized that like we're so small of a niche when it comes to the grand scheme of esports and competition and collegiate as a whole. It's like I think it's kind of up in the air, to be honest. I think nobody's really like figured out like what the best approach is. And like I said, I
Right.
often draw a lot of inspiration from traditional sports because those guys have been doing it for way longer than esports has even been around. So it's like seeing what they're doing, and it is just a lot of like storytelling and things like that. And I think that that's what I'd like to see out of more collegiate programs as a whole. And it doesn't have to be like a full-blown event documentary, but just like telling the story of the program, I think is where a lot of people are gonna draw inspiration from. I think podcasting is getting really popular
Yeah.
with programs too. So I think that that could be an avenue that more people go down. Um, yeah, I think it's up in the air right now. I don't think anybody really knows, to be honest. You know, I think like we're at Maryville, like I can just say, like I think we're gonna start focusing on just more higher quality documentaries. Like I
Yep.
think we like oftentimes we travel a lot and trying to figure out how to, we go into events not really knowing what the final product is going to be. So I think we're starting to like take a step back and go into events with an idea of like what we want the final product to look like. Sometimes it's a really story driven doc. Sometimes it's just like a vlog and like a
Right.
recap style, like here's what's going on. So I think it's a mixed bag,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. I like that though. I mean, I think this opens up the opportunities for, somebody come along and find find gold and really
Yeah.
innovate, and I think everybody else goes, okay, cool, there's a thing that we're all gonna go do now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's a great thing. All
Yeah.
right, only got a couple more minutes left before we go. I do
Sure.
want to let you tell people where they can find you, how to get and see your content, how to reach out to you, all of the things. So go ahead.
Yeah, Maryville GG on I think on all platforms. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, X, all those fun things. Me personally, I'm not super involved in socials anymore. I think I mainly be behind the scenes of the Maryville accounts more than I am my own
Yeah.
accounts. But Shiplee on Shiplee underscore, I think on like all platforms now at this point. So Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, I'm never on, but yeah, that's where you can find me. Yeah, we're doing some really cool things at Maryville. I'm really excited for the future of what we're working on behind the scenes, some of the cool things that we have coming up. Doing a lot of traveling over the next few months, so I'm excited to
Yeah.
see what we can kind of create as we travel. And yeah.
Well, we're very excited to have you come down here to Orlando for the NACE
Yep,
Grand Finals.
I
Any
will be there.
predictions you wanna throw out there before this?
Maryville on top in Valorant, Rocket League, Overwatch, and League of Legends. That's all I'll say.
Okay, all four of the games that you're
Yeah,
coming to
hey,
play. Okay, I
yeah,
like
yep,
that.
yep.
Well, that is awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. Guys, our next episode of Have Game Will Travel is going to be on May 1st with Anissa Peoples, Armada Community Specialist here at Full Sail. Very excited to have her on the show. So we will see you on May 1st. But until then, have a fantastic evening, and we will see you next time.